All right, you've already seen the title of the video. There's no point in me trying to be clever or anything like this with the intro. I'm looking at the official forums today to see what their reaction is to the North American Fan Festival announcements. For those who missed it, the new expansion Dawntrail was announced, and they gave us a bunch of high-level information. And, well, I'm curious what the official forums had to say about that, because they always say things, and they're usually very interesting. So let's see what this looks like. All right, so this first one actually not too bad, because I've actually seen this around the community a little bit before, and people were saying it before 7.0 was even announced. But Thread, please make the new level cap 99 instead of 100. I know we always get 10 levels, but I'm pleading to make it 99 instead, in homage to all the other Final Fantasy games with a cap of 99. I like how they only want an homage specifically to the games that have the 99 cap, because there are games that do not have that cap. There are games that have the cap at 100. There's games where it goes even higher than that. Some of them are just based on skill levels. Some of them don't have levels at all. But people were saying this a lot before it came out. But we also knew, if you're someone who keeps up with a lot of the news, that they were planning on making it 100 like 7 or 8 months ago. They talked about this. So there was already no chance of this happening. And like, I get it. Like the desire to want it to be like the classic level 99 that like most people know and grew up with, like in the majority of the games. But there's no logical reason to do it. There's no logistical reason to do it. Honestly, the only real question is what are they going to do after? And Yoshida himself has already said that that is something they're considering, because eventually the amount of levels that you gain just, it's a little intimidating for players. So they don't know if they'll do another system or a level squish, or just say, who cares, and keep going up by 10 levels. But yeah, that's not that uncommon of a sentiment, but they're not going to go back and change it now. I like how the idea is, no, change it. You know, it's not too late. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. Oh boy, this title. I mean, this is one of the red threads, so, you know, these are usually pretty good. 7.0 Copium has got to stop. For those who are not as terminally online as I am, Copium is like, it's like a coping mechanism. It's a meme that like you're sniffing on something that helps you cope with whatever reality is. Seriously, I don't even know where people get the idea that 7.0 is going to fix or even partially fix the problems with this game. It's not just 1 or 2 people. It's like the majority of the player base. I don't know where they're getting majority. I don't think I've seen a single person who hasn't put the Copium emote with that statement like, surely it'll fix it, Copium. If you don't like the game at all, unironically save yourself the money and quit now, because at this point the game is irredeemable. There's literally no point in waiting for 7.0 to fix anything. Spoiler, they won't. Only reason to stick to this game is for secondary, non-game purpose. I guess they mean socializing or role-playing. Depends on the kind. Let me just spoil the ending for you all. 14 is going to start failing slowly. Square Enix is going to put this on maintenance mode in like 8.0. Maybe they'll try to revitalize it, revitalize it, but fail. CBU3 has literally no idea how to make interesting progression systems. There's not a single exploratory content or horizontal content that succeeded with the entire player base. They just don't know how. They also fired some devs and leads who disagreed with the vision of the game. Rumor. Clearly, they're not open to feedback. Oh, wait, hold on. Don't huff the Copium, really. No need to wait. Okay. I know the forums are really, really good at at bait posts. Like, I know when I'm reading these, there's at least a 50% chance it's a bait post. But let's take this piece by piece. I agree with the initial sentiment. Anyone who is honestly holding on to a drastic overhaul of the game in 7.0, honestly, I don't know why you'd expect it. The game is successful, has continued to be successful, and will likely continue to be successful doing what they do now. The majority of the player base does not engage with a lot of the systems that you often hear creators having problems with. They just engage with the game, or they regularly play and stop playing, sub and unsub, and have a healthy relationship with it. And that has actually been one of the main catalysts for allowing the game to continue to succeed and to make its way into kind of the gaming community's eyes a little bit more, other than its story. The second sentence, if you don't like it, save your money and quit now, because the game is irredeemable. I do agree that at some point you do need to actually look at the game as a whole and decide if you're just kind of holding on to something because of a sunken cost fallacy, but you're not really interested in it anymore. Like you genuinely need to have that thought if you've been playing a game for a really long time, because you might just have more fun or build more memories somewhere else. It's not even about necessarily hating it. It could just be about not wanting to spend your time there anymore. I wouldn't put it quite like this. I don't think it needs to be redeemed, but I'll reword it into adult language, I suppose. But secondary non-game purposes tells me what are they doing in their spare time. Let me spoil the ending for you all. 14 will start failing slowly, and Screams will put this on maintenance modes in 8.0 or 9.0. Okay, so first of all, if it's going to fail slowly, why would it be in maintenance mode by 8.0? That's not slow at all. That would be like a drastic downturn after, by that time, 11 years almost of success, with the summer 2024 release. That's not going to happen. Here's what will eventually happen. I think 14 has hit its peak and will always kind of hover around the peak that it is currently at or was at towards the end of Shadowbringers and early Endwalker. I don't think it will ever exceed that, because the story, not even the story of the game, but the story of this rebirthed MMO that had a 10-year story that suddenly everyone wanted to know and be involved with, is something that captured and captivated a lot of people just as a whole. So I do agree, at least on that level, but it's not going to stay. You understand how important the Final Fantasy franchise is, why it was reborn in the first place. So that's the part that reads as bait right there. And then CPU3 literally has no idea how to make interesting progression systems because they know they largely serve no purpose. Most people just want the answer. The people who want hardcore progression systems are often not the people who the game appeals to. So it's one of those, if we were to do this, it's likely to alienate more people than it is to help. So I think they know. I think they just understand that at the end of the day, everyone just Googles it anyway. So I love more in-depth progression systems as long as it's something that I can experiment with and explore, and it doesn't need a guide. Looking at you, PoE. But I don't think I think it's just because they just don't think it's valued time. There's not a single exploratory content or horizontal content that succeeded with the entire player base. No content is likely to succeed with the entire player base except for glamour. That's it, which is why the double die thing got so much clapping. But exploratory, I mean, Eureka is still active to this day, and Bozja would be if it had a better long-term reward structure, which is a genuine thing they really need to look at going into Dawntrail. And I think a lot of people who do regularly participate in endgame content agree on that. So don't huff the copium, really. No need to wait for 7.0. It's already over. I would... Wait, their join date on the forums was July 2023, and they have 228 they made this account. This is an alt. That's bait. That's ultimate. Wait, this was posted in July. This was posted before the Dawntrail stuff even happened, like 5 days before. I mean, to be fair, it feels like they could have posted this for literally any when 8.0 comes around, I want all of you to remember this and post this exact thing in my comment section. Somebody get it. Somebody just have that foresight. Like 3.5, 4 years from now, when we're getting ready for 8.0 hype, please remember that and please post it. I'll be waiting. All right, we've got another fun one that came the day after the FanFest had taken place. Thread, I hate how we have to wait so long for new healers and tanks. Obviously, in reference to the fact that we're getting 2 new DPS. A lot of people predicted that would be the case. It's definitely within pattern for them. So, I guess as someone who's been around for so long, I wasn't so surprised, but let's read it. I get that the job system is complicated, makes things pretty hard for the devs, but I feel like the duration that we wait on new healers and tanks is absurd when there are only 4 of each. Healers, White Mage came first. It was the only healer until Scholar was added and A Realm Reborn. Heck, it was technically Conjurer, and then White Mage was added like as a job upgrade mid 1.x. But yeah, they're still right. Then came Astra in 3.0 in 2015. Wouldn't be until 2021 that we'd see a new healer, which was Sage. That's 6 years wait, 6 full years, ridiculous. That got kind of extended because of the whole Shadowbringers delay thing, but I feel you. Tanks, Warrior and Paladin were the original tanks in 2.0. 2 years later, we got Dark Knight, no new tank in Stormblood, so by the time Shadowbringers came out, it was 4 years 4 whole years for another tank. Not quite as bad because of Dark Knight, but it is a gap. Now for Dawntrail, we are confirmed to be getting 2 new DPS, the single most saturated job type in the game. Don't get me wrong, I'm fine with DPS. I understand DPS is more complex than just a job type. It has multiple different types. I'm in the camp that I really wanted a new caster DPS, so I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is the long wait it takes for games to add more to the other roles. I understand if they aren't as common as the damage dealers, because that is how it is in most MMOs, but I kind of wish we just had a few more, a little more often. Feels like the game does only know how to work a DPS and not a healer or a tank. Hope that in 4 to 6 years we are not without a new healer and tank. It is an integral part of the player base and should be respected a lot more. There are people that crave new healing and tankier content. I actually think a completely reasonable post, and honestly these posts haven't even been that bad. I totally get it if you're somebody who belongs to a role and you don't see something new for your role after such a long time has taken place. The big thing is to understand why the devs do that and how it leads to kind of those long waits that you had. Effectively, the biggest surprise is, well, okay, so one of the two is very likely to get screwed over, but we understand why now, kind of. So back when they did Heaven's Ward, they gave us 1 DPS, 1 tank, and 1 healer, after also giving us Ninja about a year prior in 2.4. From that point on, they said they would never do 3 jobs again, which is kind of what leaves this power vacuum that this person is acknowledging. The big thing is that, as they themselves have said, they always want to add a new DPS every single expansion. So that means that if there's 2 jobs, one of them is always going to be DPS. Now, if they ever go down to just one new job, that probably changes. I doubt they would only add DPS to the game from that point. But that's kind of already going to always consume 1 spot. So then they rotate the other spot. So they did 2 DPS for Stormblood, and then they did a tank and then a healer filling the other spot. Because they had a tank and a healer in 3.0, one of the two is going to get screwed. You are either going to get a 4-year wait for a healer or a 6-year wait for a tank, or it was going to be the way that it actually ended up working, and 4 for a tank, 6 for a healer. Totally get it. Totally reasonable thing to think, but it's the reality of the situation. The big thing is always taking in stride the actual changes that are made to tanks and healers, which in and of itself can be divisive. So that can really alter how much you're willing to tolerate those long waits as well. So there's so many different facets and way you can look at it, but at the end of the day, it is the reality. They're unlikely to add things more frequently just because they haven't in a while. I would actually love it if it was like maybe a tank and a healer in 7.0. Like, I'm normally a Fizz ranged main, so I'm expecting a Fizz ranged in 8.0. Sorry, not 7.0. A Fizz ranged in 8.0. But I would be totally cool if they wanted to do the tank healer thing again and skip a DPS that expansion. I've just got no reason to predict it's going to go that way because they've said they think they want to add a DPS every expansion. So 8.0 will kind of be telling for the future, but I am expecting a new tank in 8.0. Not having that would shock me. All right, here's a nice quick one, another reaction to 7.0 stuff. My big fear for 7.0. What is their massive fear? Well, in all caps, it's very easy to figure out. Button bloat, 3 exclamation marks. This is what I fear the most because I know the game is going to be great. Okay, you should wait for it to come. Like, I'm excited too, but like, it's a bold statement. Seems like so many jobs could use a good condensing and pruning of abilities. I say bring on more one... Like Confiteor. Okay, hold on. I'll elaborate. Like Confiteor for Paladin. Sure, there's other things to be worried about, like good rewards for time spent on difficult endeavors, but button bloat is coming for us all. Beware. So since Heaven's Ward, they've pretty much kept the button totals to approximately the same that they've always been, because that was their main objective going from Heaven's Ward into Stormblood. Now, I do think they have failed on some fronts on jobs like Paladin and Samurai, like Shoha 1 and Shoha 2. Doesn't need to be the case. Ikki Shoten might as well become Oninami Kiri. There's no reason for that to be an extra button. And having, what, I think 6 single target GCDs and then the 3 AoE GCDs, that's not the worst. That's the same as Monk, but I mean, maybe all the branching paths. There's a few little things that could be done. Paladin, on the other hand, maybe Paladin and Scholar are still a little bit button bloating. I mean, but here's the thing. Totally reasonable, but expect the button total to continue to stay about the same. And in regards to the 1-button combos, I'm glad they said like Confiteor on Paladin, because I think specifically it's those burst window combos that don't need to be multiple buttons. Even like Ikki Shoten into Oninami Kiri, that's a burst combo button combo. Yeah, that's right. And that there's no reason for that to be 2 buttons. So even like little things like that are definitely the places I would hope they would improve. So fair, but they've already been working at this. So there's not that much reason to fear, but, you know, always keep your mind out. And if you do see something that seems button bloaty, you know, provide it as feedback. All right, so this is actually a serious topic. I brought it up briefly on State of the Realm, but as I was not an attendee, I didn't want to speak for other people. So we're going to switch gears. You know, the video has been funny up to this point, but this absolutely requires and deserves to be something that appears in the video, but we'll probably not end the video on this post. So North American Fan, the title of it is 14 FanFest 2023 North America Safety, Security, Disability Support Issues Discussion. I don't even need to necessarily read the whole post. I'd prefer that you actually go to the post and engage with it yourself. But all the same, I don't see it as a search for FanFest safety, so I guess I'll start the thread. I'm a Vegas local and an avid and a 14 player and hope to see FanFest come back to my town in the future. That said, it looks like there were some issues on the floor last weekend regarding security and disability access to events, particularly pertaining to communication to festival attendees and communication ability within the event execution staff. No radios, how to communicate. Wow, that's mind-boggling. And then they list a bunch of accounts here for people who are saying they need to talk about security, and there's a whole thread. And I've actually read through all of these threads as well. Zeppla also interviewed some attendees that were in need of, you know, special assistances, you know, people who were ADA. And from what I understand, it was just an absolute madhouse. There's a mix of quite a lot of things that went wrong, but I think what's generally agreed to is that the event staff made not enough effort, or in some cases, zero or negative effort to actually assist people who had disabilities who were trying to enjoy the convention. It was just a constant madhouse, and that was apparent. I mean, it was a madhouse for all the attendees. I've heard so many stories since FanFest about the event staff and how, oh, actually, Zeppla's thing is on here, her actual video, which for this topic in depth, you should probably just go to that video because we're covering this along with a lot of other stuff. But there's honestly, it's kind of embarrassing. Like, you hear like one person having trouble and you're like, wow, that's awful. And then there's all these other stories like, wow, it was awful for absolutely everyone. It wasn't like an isolated occurrence. It wasn't anything. It would have been unacceptable regardless. But yeah, I feel like it's at least worth highlighting all these stories. I'll include a link directly to this forum post in the description of the video itself. And then, of course, you have Zeppla's video, which is listed in there as well. So yeah, definitely go engage with that because that's a major, major problem. But I also want to say this. I heard a lot of stories from some of these threads about how attendees were also being incredibly disrespectful. It was that the staff did nothing to kind of right the wrongs that the attendees were doing. And in some cases were doing nothing at all to help in the first place. So I do want to put a little bit of onus on some of the attendees who just seemingly didn't care. They were just there for themselves and didn't seem to have any sort of sense of the people that were around them. Like, I get it. Like, we haven't had a lot of social events. Like, there might be a little bit of some socially inept individuals, but for it to be so rampant and so just unconsiderate, I don't know. It's just, it definitely upsets me. And I hate to see it this way because, you know, we all want to associate the event with something that's really fun and exciting and positive. But that's the fact of the matter is that's not how it was for quite a few attendees who had to put up with all the people who are making all this difficult, whether it was event staff or anything, just it's complete inaccessibility for ADA people to even begin to consider having a good time. So want to switch gears a little bit for this specific topic. Yeah, definitely go engage with that one directly because that's feedback that really needs to happen. Okay, we're going to switch gears back to the funny stuff. But seriously, no, to take that topic seriously and engage with it. But this has to go in the video. The thread is, Yoshi P calling everybody Warrior of Light in his speeches ruins my... Here's the thing. I know exactly what it's going to say before I even read it. It's not very long, though, but that title alone tells you everything. This is a case of my immersion. But is it an ironic case of my immersion, or is it like someone genuinely has their immersion ruined? Let's read it. There is only one real Warrior of Light, myself. And he needs to change his ways because seriously, it is pooping all over the storyline. Not everybody and their mum can be Warriors of Light. The story doesn't allow it. Does Yoshi no longer care about lore? Just call us players instead. Not Warriors. Oh my god. You know what's weird? They said there's only one me, but don't call us warrior. Like, they include themselves in the us of, like, not to be called warrior. I think he just doesn't want it to be said. But, like, I personally refuse to believe people like this are actual, like, that they exist. I just refuse to believe it. So when I see a post like this, I'm like, that's bait. But my favorite thing is I can actually see the response under it, but I'm the warrior of light. He should stop calling you it. And then there's someone with the Spider-Man meme and they're all pointing at each Oh my goodness. Then there's one comment that's like, I wish they would just treat us as generic adventurers instead of demigods. You know, I'd rather have my character seen and treated as a nobody. Oh my God. Oh, that's so funny. Either way, that can't be real. I refuse it. Here's another one. Please bring back exploratory zones in Dawntrail. In the keynote at the Las Vegas Fan Fest, Yoshi P announced the different types of battle content coming to the game in the newest expansion, Dawntrail. However, one type of content was not mentioned in any shape or form, and the slide was exploratory zones, the category that Eureka and Bo should belong to, or Bazia. I've heard them call it both. I've heard they've just said it depends on your pronunciation. While they said that you could still announce it, while they could still announce including it at a later date, its absence in Endwalker makes me worried it will not return. So, I actually would like to give you guys some information. If you haven't seen my video on it, they did a press roundtable where press got to ask Yoshi P questions, and they all kind of just reported on all the questions that each other asked. And one of them was about more difficult four-man content. But in the answer to that, Yoshi P did say they are currently looking at doing a new exploration zone, and they just want to get further along before they actually talk about it. So the odds of it aren't actually that bad because they seem to be aware that it is something people want. And it'd be weird for them to answer it in the press briefing for Dawntrail as if it's not something they're planning for Dawntrail. So I wouldn't say just like universally accept that means we're getting it, but at the very least, hold on to hope. I think it's reasonable if they said they're actively looking into it and exploring it, no pun intended, that there is a decent chance that we get it. And honestly, that seems to be the case with most content types. It seems like based on that interview, like they're genuinely looking at variant, brand new battle content, exploration zones, a new deep dungeon. Like they just kind of named everything they've ever made in the past, and they make it seem like they're trying to make all of them a reality. I wouldn't expect that, but that would be really cool. This even mentions that exploratory zones could still be on the table for Dawntrail. It gives me some hope, but we should not stop having our voices heard. Absolutely agree. It is worthwhile to say that it's content you enjoyed. That is the best way to communicate it to devs. Doesn't always mean you'll get what you want, but they're absolutely correct. All right, and I've already taken more of these than I normally do for this video, but given the topic, I felt like it was worth doing. We have one last one that just says, the Blitzball dream is dead. Yoshi P destroyed it. I'm very sad. Now I want to say to all of you Blitzball enjoyers out there, to all of you begging and pleading for it to be put in the game, I'm so glad it's not at least at 6.x. Woo! However, 7.0's Gold Saucer minigame is a mystery. We don't know what it is. It could still be Blitzball. So I'm going to hold on to my excitement for now and save my disappointment for later. You can probably have your disappointment now and have your excitement later. But I'm hoping you get disappointment later, because I don't want it. Hi, swear, still the same person, believe it or not. I got pulled away at the end of that last video, and I guess I must have been really distracted because I never recorded an outro for it, and only realizing it now as I'm going back and editing the video itself. So here I am saying, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the forum dive. Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and that is saying something for the official forums. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and check out all the other videos on the channel. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one, and until then, take care.